Hi, my name is Orfeh, and you're listening to 11, the official theater podcast.
Hello and welcome to 11, the official theatre podcast that brings the biggest stars and creatives together in one place to discuss life in the arts. Please be upstanding for Broadway royalty as we welcome one of the most instantly recognisable voices to ever grace the stage, with credits including Saturday Night Fever, Pretty Woman, Footloose, and, of course, Legally Blonde, a show that bagged her a casual Tony Award nomination. She knows a thing or two about leading a company and the sound of applause. With a big screen and music career also on her CV, it's pretty fair to say she's inspired an entirely new generation of performers to chase the dream of a lifetime in the arts. Sharing thoughts on how she did it, including fighting for big belty numbers and why she'd love to make it all the way to the West End sometime soon. Snaps at the ready as we welcome the glorious tones of Orfeh to this new episode of 11, the official theatre podcast. Just to let you know, due to the global COVID-19 pandemic and a few thousand miles between us, Orfeh and I connected digitally, so please forgive any brief moments while we wait for the internet to catch up. From London all the way to Miami, one of my all-time favourite people, please help me welcome Orfeh. Hello, how are you?
Hello. Thank you for having me. 11 is one of my favorite numbers, so this is exciting.
It's very, very exciting to be able to see you, and also this very impressive microphone setup that you've got. It's like you're in your own homemade recording studio. I'm very, very impressed.
Thank you very much. We do try to make it easy for everyone. We do a lot of recording. We do a lot of voiceover. We do a lot of podcasts. None as wonderful as 11, obviously.
Oh, very kind. I owe you some money. Thank you very much. I'll spend it in PayPal you. I think I've got your details. But,
okay, good.
But just thank you so much once again for being on the podcast. It's such a pleasure. And like I say, I really genuinely am a fan. And sometimes people say that in a fickle way, but I mean that very genuinely, because I think when I first discovered the very crazy but rather wonderful world of musical theatre, some very specific voices stand out, and yours is very, very unique and very, very impressive. So it's really exciting for me to get to ask you some questions that I've always wanted to ask. I should probably prefix by saying you've got a lot of fans, so please don't start getting in my mentions if I don't ask about every single part of Orfeh's career, because it's very, very lengthy and very impressive CV. So that's like my disclaimer to say, please don't come for me.
Do not come for William.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
You mess with us both. Without reflecting on it too much, I guess, when the pandemic started and I guess in the time since then, how has your life changed? And I guess, how do you think theatre has changed?
I don't think any of us is still able to fathom what is happening. I think that we're in a combination of denial and shock and just kind of slogging through it in our own way to be able to cope with the reality of it, which really stinks. So, listen, Pretty Woman had already closed, but long before the pandemic hit. But, a lot of my dearest friends were in the midst of shows and had to very abruptly change the course of their life for however length of time, we don't know. But it's a caustic and rather unpleasant reality. So I'm only hopeful and praying that one day it'll be a very distant footnote that no one really talks about, like that bad little thing you never really talk about where you're like, shh, no, don't bring it up. But I'm hoping we're on the other side of it at this point. It has been a rather long time. Attempt to keep yourselves busy. You do this sort of wonderful thing that wonderful people like yourself can, think to ask us to do. There's a lot of Zooming. There's a lot of, master classing. There are a lot of students who didn't get to do their productions of the shows that they were in that we might have, originated or something like that. And we get to do Q&As. We get to kind of uplift the youth coming up into musical theater. That's been a lot of fun, so that's just the short of it. I don't think anyone's having a great time going, hey, isn't this an amazing break? I don't think anybody feels that way.
Definitely. And I love the fact that you found positives within this time, because I do think that is the way to success, is for us to be able to find, the little opportunities where actually good things have happened. And I imagine things like, yes, of course, you could do your masterclasses in person, but people might have got access to you that geographically might not have been in the same sort of place as you. And I see that very much as a positive.
I do too. 100%. There's a definite new wave of fans that, like you said, otherwise couldn't be actually in the room. Streaming concerts is a big deal because a lot of people aren't going to fly. And I've been very fortunate. We've had fans from London and Brazil and Germany fly in for concerts. Now they don't have to go through all of that. So there are very mild pluses that I would not wish upon us. And, we make do, obviously, but these are unmitigatingly bizarre circumstances. But yes, it does bring a broader audience because you don't have to be anywhere specific to zoom in, obviously, so that has been a plus. And I think that for me, I have to stay positive because I don't want to drown in all of the sorrow of it all, and the drama of it all. And if you let yourself get negative, then it's a quick road and a rabbit hole into all the negativity. And, that doesn't serve my fans at all. For me to be downtrodden, I'm here to make them feel as good as possible in a not such a great point in time.
And also it means that you and I get to live out our best Whitney Houston fantasy with these fancy microphones, singing at home, pretending, because unlike you, who's very, very talented, I cannot sing. So this is a real sort of journey for me. And I must confess, I'm loving every minute of it.
Oh, good. Well, good. I'm glad. See we can put a positive spin on this moment in time as well.
Exactly. Yeah. You do seem, if I may say so, as a very positive person. I mean, perhaps just from the interviews that I've looked at and sort of following your career, you seem like you are very much a glass half full sort of person. Has that served you well?
It has served me well. I cannot fathom the alternate, the alternative. I cannot fathom it because then I don't want to be the person who's always downtrodden, glass half empty. I've said this before, it's just a lot easier to be nice and upbeat than it is to be an asshole.
Absolutely.
And there's just so much energy that is expended during that portion of life, like to be angry and to be sad and listen, everyone's going through their own thing, and I'm not saying that I don't have miserable moments and really like just horrified moments, but I don't need to give that to a group of people or masses of people that expect something else from me. And I'm okay with being that for them. It's something I adopted a long time ago, and I'm certainly not going to let it go now. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be like, well, now I'm going to be ultra sad for you. And let me just, paint a really awful picture. That's not who I am. And that's not what I'm here to do at the moment. But,
Definitely.
If I can inspire, if I can make people feel better, even for a moment, even for the 3 minutes they listen to my song, that's what I'm here to do.
You definitely do that. I can vouch from my own personal experience. You absolutely do that. You referenced Pretty Woman being obviously the last show. It closed just before lockdown itself. When you finish a show that's had great success, and particularly in a role like that, high energy, high profile show, does it take a long time to switch off? Like, how long does it take before you go, okay, I sort of feel like I'm back to zero again?
It doesn't take a long time to switch off. I have, I was thinking about it today. I think I am part of one of the biggest, most legendary flops of the 90s. So for me, I was kind of catapulted into that reality a long time ago. So, Fascinating Rhythm was a show we did in 1999. It was a Gershwin review filled with some of the biggest stars of musical theater that segued into film and TV. And, to have to kind of click out of that instantaneously, and no one was expecting. I don't know that any of us thought it was going to be the colossal bomb that it was. So, after 32 shows, we had to immediately be like, okay, well, we're not going to work tomorrow and it's over. And we had our, I think, closing notice on a Tuesday, and we were done that Sunday. So for me, it's very simple to kind of click back into real life. I do go through a mourning period about it. I do, even when I've had advance notice, or, I've been in something like Saturday Night Fever. We were there for a while from, the beginning of previews, the beginning of rehearsals to the last show. Pretty Woman, I was involved with from the first workshop, if we're being really technical, to the closing night. I was involved with Pretty Woman for the better part of 3 years. Yep. So, everything does, it's easy to get back to real life. It's easy to, not do the 8 shows a week. That's a lot of heavy lifting, but there is an absolute mourning period for every show. That's every kind of aspect of anything that you do in the entertainment business. There's a long mourning period, and you just kind of get through that too, because it's different. You don't get to see your friends every day. You don't get to do what you do. You don't get to see the audiences, to hear that applause. It's very addictive. So it's a moment to have kind of like have a little reflection and
Yep.
boo-hoo, woe is me,
Do you get the same level of reflection even when positive things happen? Because you've been part of so many shows that have come to where I am here in London, to the West End, roles that you've originated. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, things like Pretty Woman, obviously Legally Blonde, when they come here and they have a second life in a different way. And obviously you're not directly involved in it, but you know that your work has created and allowed it to be seen by new people. Do you almost get like the reverse of that?
I'm always so surprised, especially with something like Legally Blonde that's had this bizarre resurgence during this pandemic. Like we've talked about it. The cast has talked about it. We've gotten together. We've been on Zooms together. We are so much more collectively popular in 2020, 2019, 2017, 2016, 2018. I'm skipping years, but literally we are so much more popular than we ever were when we were on Broadway in the midst of doing the show. I dare say this. I don't think anyone would argue with me, but we are so much more of a phenomenon. We're an actual phenomenon now. So it's one of those things you don't kind of steep yourself in and think, oh, I'm so fabulous and so popular. I was Paulette in Legally Blonde, but it does do my heart a great deal of good to know that, these kids on Zoom are like, I'm auditioning for Paulette. What can I do? You realize that you do have some bit of a legacy, no matter what. If nothing else wonderful ever happens for me in my career, I can hang my hat on those things. You know what I mean? Like there is a legacy to it. Thankfully, I think that Laura Bell Bundy feels the same way. I'm sure, a lot of the cast members feel the same way. Jerry Mitchell probably feels the same way. It's like, if nothing else wonderful ever happens, you can't take that away from anyone. And because it's so much more popular today than it ever was, I can only imagine it's just going to expand and continue to go. I've been invited to so many junior high school productions of Legally Blonde, or, regional productions. It's very nice to know that exists, that you get to say, well, I did, I don't have a number one hit record to be able to rest upon. I've got a top 40, but no one knows about it. But so it's something nice to be able to take with you forever.
It's so interesting you mentioned this resurgence, because I did sort of try and figure out why it might be. And I do think, like most things, that people have a longing and a want for it, and they introduce their friends to it, and it's sort of as a byproduct of just people talking. It's literally just, guys, have you seen the MTV recording? Yes. Oh my God, it's amazing. Or have you listened to the soundtrack? To be fair to it, when it came here, especially with Legally Blonde, my gosh, I mean, the West End, it just blew everybody away. And I think perhaps we'd seen some not so great musical adaptations. It's just a great production. Sheridan Smith was phenomenal. It just worked. And I think this is the t-shirts, it's the revival that we want. There's such a world of it, means that I think Legally Blonde will probably never ever go away, and thank goodness for it. I think we could be heading for, fingers crossed, a revival not so soon.
It's really, really strange and wonderfully strange in the sense that it just, look, I think there is something huge to be said that we were lucky enough to be pro-shot. Like that was the first time that has ever happened. We were totally way ahead of the whole curve with that. And it wasn't just some, kind of meh. It was a very well done, very professional, very well lit sound, everything. It was all the bells and whistles. So the fact that people are able to very legally, no pun intended, go and find this pro shot. It's on YouTube in all the parts. In case all the youngins missed it the first time, it aired exactly 6 times. That's what we were contracted. It exactly aired 6 times on MTV. And I think the fact that people are able to watch it as it was done for real. Yep. You know what I mean? We didn't do anything differently. We just did the show and MTV recorded it as it was. There was no kind of post or pre or anything. So you see what you would have seen if you had bought a ticket to the show. So I think that is a major reason. I think the fact that it was such a hit in London and Sheridan's such a big star in London, I think that certainly helped. But this resurgence is, where can people go? What can people do? You're sitting in front of your computer, you're going to see it on YouTube, and then you're going to suddenly be like, did you ever watch, this was a long time ago already. So there's a new core fan base that wasn't there. You're not going to the theater if you're 4 years old. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I think the MTV thing was a huge and is a huge reason why it's having this moment.
Definitely.
And forever hereafter, I think. It's easy. It's easy to watch. It's not some grainy bootleg.
It really is. And I feel like Legally Blonde is one of those shows where it was, I don't want to say it was always meant to be a musical, but it was always hiding in there somewhere. You knew
Absolutely.
Watching the film, you were like, do you know what? I want Paulette to sing. And actually, do you know what? As iconic as that movie is, and some would argue it's one of the greatest there's ever been, you almost wait for her to sing now. It's almost like you've done the reverse in a way.
I agree with you 100%. I think that's why what musicals, adaptations of films, you do want that moment where you're like, this is so heightened. Why aren't they singing? You know what I mean? So you're absolutely right. That's a really keen observation, actually.
And it's a role that gave you a Tony nomination. Is that right?
It did.
Just a cash Tony nomination. I mean,
just a casual Tony nomination.
Can you believe that you got paid to go to work and got a Tony nomination for having that much fun?
No, it's I'm still annoyed that I lost, but but it was a wonderful opportunity and a really great ending to a very long, like a great moment of fruition to a very lengthy journey. And, Jerry Mitchell, they'll all tell you, they didn't even want me for that role. That was a role I had to fight with my teeth, my nails, my everything. I had to crawl through glass on, cut open knees through an alcohol river to get that part. So for me, especially, it was a big triumph because this was a role nobody wanted me to have. So, I think it just goes to show you, if you have a very strong passion for something, you can prove to the powers that be that, maybe the talent was right after all. Maybe it was a good fit. I think everyone would agree now. So,
I think they would. I definitely think they would. And there's been lots of different versions now, different productions, and from the I think the San Francisco tryouts through to Broadway of Ireland and Verses, etc. But the one thing that I know that you were involved in personally and professionally was the very now iconic opt up at the end of Island Reprise, which is just you through and through. You're basically just giving the girls and the gays exactly what they want, and we're very grateful for it.
Thank you.
just talk to me about how did that process come about? How did you get to sort of make your stamp on that?
I mean, it was such a fight. And again, I don't know that Larry O'Keefe and Nell Benjamin would argue this point. At this point, they would probably think it was silly, but I had to beg for that musical ending. That's not how the song ended in San Francisco during a first few previews and the entirety of the rehearsal. And I would beg Jerry Mitchell, I'm like, you have me in this show. You cannot have me finish the song, turn up stage, and yell a couple of words and run off stage. Not only is there going to be a revolt, but it just doesn't utilize my gifts as an entertainer. There's no point in having me do this song if you're going to end it this way. So it was many a moment of pleading and reasoning with them. And I said, look, write me a musical ending, write me a big, towering, crazy Orfeh ending. And if I'm wrong, and if the audience doesn't react, and if they don't go nuts, and if they don't, like, you can feel the release from the audience, then we'll put it back to the speaking thing. But I will bet you my job. I will bet you my job that I'm right about this. So sure enough, they wrote this, the Irish fear nothing and no one. They keep fighting till everyone's dead. And there's a guy at the party who loves you. Something most of us only dream of. You go out there and you get some Ireland. The lyrics were different. And then I turn up stage and say something ridiculous. Like, and don't forget to wear 4-inch heels. So after much begging and pleading, they wrote, you go out there and you get some Ireland, the country of whiskey and love. Like, I had to beg for that. And finally, when we did it, the audience went crazy and they were like, yeah, that was a great idea we had. Not I had. But, if that's what it takes to have gotten me that, the most iconic of my moments in that show, and I'm not calling myself an icon, don't anyone
I
kind
am.
of get all up in arms, but William is. That's how it happened. That's really, really how it happened. It was a struggle. It was a major, major struggle.
But good things come to those that fight and insist, and you just knew it was right. And when you know, you know.
Here's the thing. I'm very good at knowing what it is that an audience wants from me in particular. I may not know the best, method for the show itself. I know what the audience wants from me. I had been performing a long time before I ever hit the stage for Legally Blonde, whether it was in the music business and concerts or Saturday Night Fever was a big informative existence for me. I knew what it was that an audience in a musical theater environment wanted from me. So I also am very good at taking the temperature of the room. I'm very good at giving the people what they want from me. And I wasn't trying to show off. I wasn't trying to get accolades for like a big rousing ending. I just knew that it would be a grand, holy disappointment for the audience if I ran up stage and said, make sure you wear 4-inch heels. That was just so, it was anathema to the song, the whole moment. Like, why have me on stage by myself with the scenery moving, this big moment, and then have me turn up stage and say something not so interesting at all. So I'm really glad if I won nothing else, if I won no other fight, and if I had to, spend almost 4 months of my life begging for that job, I'm glad that was a payoff. I'm glad they did it.
Even if you didn't win that part of the song and that stayed as it did, you did win overall because you did get to take the UPS guy home. So I feel like you won.
I did get to take the UPS guy home, and I got to work with the doggies. So it was a win-win, but you give the people what they want.
And that show certainly did. And fingers crossed for the revival, because I speak for an army of people that will back me up and say that it is an instant classic. And I'm so grateful that you fought. I'm so grateful. I will talk about Saturday Night Fever in a second, because I just want to very quickly finish our conversation about Pretty Woman, because the show is in the West End, obviously not at the moment, but fingers crossed very, very soon, doing, might I say, ridiculous numbers. I mean, literally, you can't get a ticket. Like, it's crazy. And the fact that the show just met an audience that was so desperate for a story like this, and so desperate to see that obviously the iconic film, and it's a Jerry Mitchell production, which means it brings the glitz and the glamour as well. But there's also part of the story, and musically, a lot of you, we can hear a lot of your vocals in there, and Rachel that plays your part does you proud, I promise you that. But
good.
I guess being in that show, was it as fun as we think it is?
I will tell you something. I miss that show and that cast the most, because I will tell you, if nothing else, anyone ever tells you about that show that was involved in that show, we had an unbelievably fun time on stage. We had a great time with each other. We were just, it was, I can't say enough about it, because like I said, the mourning period, I have not quite finished mourning not being with that cast. We had a lot of creative freedom. Jerry Mitchell gave all of the cast members a lot of space to create. So, I mean, I would go back to that in a heartbeat.
Do you ever find yourself just walking around the house or in the shops or whatever, doing what I do, which is just singing the harmony line to Rodeo Drive? Because that's all I do is just sing that lyric. It's quite, I must confess, it's quite annoying. I'm just like, stop singing those two words. I'm going to scream.
I do find myself, I often find myself singing "Never Give Up on a Dream." Yeah. Those are such great melodies, and we often, Andy and I, because we do them a lot for Cameo, we do Rodeo Drive a lot for Cameo. I'm sure Bryan Adams is thrilled to know that, but and Jim Valance thrilled to know that. But we do offer everything. Sometimes the answer is Rodeo Drive, baby, like for no reason. What do you want for dinner? Rodeo Drive, baby. It's like a serious earworm that we just can't shake. The other night we sang, which I've never done, the Love Ballad. So that was something that we've never done together. Mm-hmm. So that was fun. Pretty Woman has had a lasting stamp, and it hasn't been that long since we all stopped doing it. So I don't blame you. You're going to be having those moments for a long time, William.
I feel like I've got an addiction. I'm trying to wean myself. Like when I took myself off Coca-Cola, it takes a long time, but the moment will come. But being in that show, and that show unfortunately closing, does give you two plus sides. One is that you get to come see the London production, which is a big tick. But it also means that you get to come to the West End and see your friend Samantha Barks play Queen Elsa in Frozen. Have you seen the Let It Go performance?
I have, of course I have seen the Let It Go. I commented. I make sure people know
I saw the comment.
Yes. I just think it's glorious. She is just the most glorious voice. It was such a thrill to listen to her sing. And I got to listen to her sing because I was hardly ever, on stage getting to experience the big group numbers other than Rodeo Drive. And she wasn't singing in that. And then we got to sing that very brief moment in, Luckiest Girl. So she just has this like perfect voice, massive belt. And in case no one ever tells you, she's a genius with learning lyrics, because Bryan Adams and Jerry and Jim would constantly hand her new lyrics for Anywhere But Here. Anywhere But Here had like 25 different sets of lyrics. And every day they would hand her an entire new song. And by 8:00, she would know those lyrics. It was insane. Like, we'd be like, Samantha, how do you do this? So she has an uncanny ability to learn stuff instantly. It's shocking.
She's a real talent. I feel very excited about the fact we get her back. We lost her for a little bit, but to good company in the States, and we get her back. She's going to be amazing. So good luck to her.
Oh yeah.
We mentioned Saturday Night Fever. There are so many questions I have about that show and so many specific nuanced things. But the one overall question that I guess I'd love to know your thoughts on is how you think that show changed your life. Do you remember the specific thing about, you think, oh, that's what I took most from that show? Or is that too much of a broad question?
No, it's not. You know what? Everything I've done is a favorite thing I've done for a very, very different reason. And it's a really good question, William. But with regards to Saturday Night Fever, it was so many firsts for me, and also a very specific childhood dream come true, because as a child, I was very into music. Was my life. Music is my life. Music is my defining reason for my existence on this planet. And I remember as a young, like 6, 7, 8 years old, my dear departed stepfather had an 8-track of the Bee Gees' Saturday Night Fever. And I've always said this, it was all the R&B music and the Bee Gees that I would sit and I would learn my harmonies and vocal arrangements, and all of the things that they were doing made me the recording artist, made me the songwriter, made me the vocal arranger I am today. Mm-hmm. And I cannot tell you the amount of times as a young, annoying child screaming in the apartment or in the car, how many times I sang every part, every harmony to Nights on Broadway or Tragedy or any of those songs. And the fact that all those years later, I was able to actually be hired to sing those songs in a Broadway show, meet the Bee Gees, take my picture with, Barry Gibb. It is, it's something I'll never be able to get over in my own life. You know what I mean? Mm. It was really one of those convergences of dreams come true, because I'm sitting there listening to Paul Castry singing Tragedy, because I was always in the wings watching that. And I thought to myself, if only anyone knew as a young 6, 7-year-old kid, like singing these songs, and that this is what I do now. I'm singing these songs for a living. If I can't have you becoming one of my signature songs, even though I was not obviously Yvonne Elliman, I didn't record the song as a kid, but it has become one of my defining songs that people know me for. It's weird. It's very strange. So it was a really full circle moment. Working with Arlene Phillips was glorious. It was my first big lead in a big, huge Broadway show. Robert Stigwood personally handed me the job. Like, these are icons. These are forever icons. Yeah. Now we can certainly get to the fact that I met my husband in the show and we're going on 20 years of marriage. So I don't have, and I'm not going to pretend there haven't been negative experiences in some of the shows that I've done and some of the work in my life, but there is not a moment of negativity I can take away from Saturday Night Fever. It was plus, plus, plus.
Wow.
joy, joy, joy. I lost my voice and I pointed a note. That became a thing for me. The Vulcan mind trick the night I pointed the note. But I can't say enough about it. I can't say enough about it. I still have some of my dearest friends were in that show with me. And I'm married to the guy that came in and replaced, Joey. He's just like crazy. It's crazy.
I feel like testament to you and the fact that you joke about like becoming associated with songs, but I feel like because you were authentic in putting your take on them, that's why we fell in love with them, because it was different, but it was what we loved as well. And is that, I don't want to say nerve-wracking, but how do you approach taking on a song that you instantly know people are going to know when they come and see the show?
Well, I mean, thankfully, they had come with that arrangement. Okay. That arrangement existed in England when they did it in England, but they also allowed me a great deal. I've been very lucky I didn't have to fight for this at all. And they allowed me to really, really put my vocal stamp on that song. So, it was there. It was inherently there. The arrangement was inherently there. I never had to say, oh, can you speed this up? Can you do this? Can you change the key? I never said a word about it because it was so perfect in its entirety as it was brought to the States. But they also just let me do what I do and what my voice does. And it was just a perfect marriage. And I'm so grateful to that creative team that let that just be what it was. I just sometimes you get lucky, and I got really lucky with that show and with those songs, and just knowing that I'd been singing them literally my entire life.
It's like a full circle moment. I don't want to say it was always meant to be, but it sort of always was written in the stars that you would have some connection to them.
I would like to think so, because, just when you think, oh, all of this is nonsense, all this spiritual stuff is nonsense, you kind of can connect the dots with things like that with Saturday Night Fever. You're like, I've been waiting to sing these songs my entire life. I literally, if you listen to my CDs from, whatever I've got out there, that's how I know how to vocal arrange. Like, Burn Baby Burn, those vocals, that's how I know how to do a harmony upon a harmony and a low harmony and a high harmony, and where the backing vocals come in and where the like alternate vocals and the riff vocals come in. Those were my teachers. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
And maybe it is actually written in the stars when I'm singing Rodeo Drive down the sort of the Waitrose aisles. Maybe it's written in the stars that will be me one day. Maybe this is what the world is telling me.
Keep doing it. You will conjure it into reality. It may take 30 years, but it will happen.
Well, Faye says it's going to happen, so it's going to
happen.
So,
patience. Yes.
Oh, I do hope that I can come back in 10 years and tell you we were right. Do you remember that time during that weird year where we said this?
I've said to people, listen, you want to be successful, you want to be a superstar, you want to book the job, just sit next to me in the room or be in a show with me. It never fails. I cannot tell you how many people have been like, can I sleep over? Can I sleep on your couch? Can you lend me some money? And they become the biggest stars on the planet. I'm not kidding. I'm not going to name names, but I promise you there is not another soul on this earth who has had that experience more often than I have.
Oh my gosh, you literally are a walking, talking good luck charm. I need to be friends with you more often.
I'm
not going away. I'm not going away.
Okay. I'm telling you, it's uncanny. It's uncanny and it's almost fail safe. So,
oh my gosh, I love it.
It just doesn't work for me. I don't have one in mind. I don't have one.
As much as we joke, your career is unbelievably impressive. So I think you just are it. So embody every bit of it. I do want to just talk about the other side of Broadway, which is how art imitates life, and how life is very much about being political and being very socially aware and culturally aware. And I know that when things like the Orlando tragedy happened, you were recording as part of that, and you spoke up about that. You spoke up very much about the election. And I know that that's a big part of you using your voice and your advocacy. And I know you're very proud of doing that as well. I guess in your own words, why do you feel it's necessary to do that? And I guess what's your experience been like doing that so far?
Well, look, I think that first of all, with regards to Orlando and things of that nature, you always have Seth Rudetsky's very good about spearheading and cheerleading these things. And he's always just very bright about who to get involved that's going to say yes, it's going to mean something too. You know what I mean? So I just have been very fortunate that I met him a long time ago. He actually played in the pit at Saturday Night Fever.
Yes.
So, he always manages to get us involved in the best of the best. With regards to, the voting and things of that nature, I just feel like if you have spent a lifetime fighting for a right, and that moment comes along where you get to actually express yourself and utilize your voice, then it would be such a shame not to do what you can do in order to make it right and make it work for you and get your voice heard, literally get your voice heard. So that's what, I think that, look, I'm not Julie Roberts. I'm not Tom Cruise. I'm not somebody who is globally recognized, but in my little niche moment of the entertainment universe where I know what, age groups and what, I have a very young, impressionable fan base. So in my own way, and I hope I don't sound sanctimonious, but I try to lead by example.
No,
so,
absolutely.
I try to, lend my name and my voice literally and figuratively to causes that are near and dear to me, and that make sense to me and that I actually believe in. Back in the day when you were a kid, if you were in the advertising world, you had to really use that product or believe in that product or be exclusive to that product in order to sell it. You know what I mean? If you were selling Diet Coke, you better not be caught drinking a Pepsi. It was like that. And I feel like that about the things that I get behind. If I don't believe in it, then I'm not going to say yes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't do things just to say, oh, look, I've done something. Look, I'm relevant. Look, don't forget me. It has to mean something to me, So thank you for noticing. But, some causes are very, very, very near and dear to my heart. And again, if even two people are listening and going, I'm going to go and vote because Orfeh thinks it's a good idea. Great. I don't like to beat people over the head. I'm not forcing anyone's hand. I'm making a suggestion insofar as what I would do.
Yeah, definitely.
So, walk the walk, talk the talk.
In terms of being a recording artist and a singer, as well as being on the stage and, the many different songs that you've been in the studio and you've recorded, and you also then get the opportunity to go on stage in musical theatre and get to perform as a character. Is it easy? Is it hard? Does it make no difference even perhaps when you get to be you on stage as opposed to a character? And I guess how do you find the line, or is there perhaps even no line?
I have obviously a much broader scope of freedom when I'm doing my own music and our concerts, because I'm not beholden to the vision of a book writer, a songwriter, the director, the choreographer, you have to be very, very respectful of the team that is around you when you're in a musical especially. It's a behemoth. You know what I mean? You have a lot of cooks in that kitchen, and sometimes the producers have a major say in it. Sometimes the songwriters have a major say in it. The director, that's, the final word. When I'm in my own recording universe, or when I was in the music business back in the day, and when we do our concerts especially, then it's our world. It's our, entire universe. It's what we say. It's how we want the structure to be. It's completely autonomous, whereas it is not. You're only in charge of the performance you're giving on stage in the moment. So, and that has been constructed and that has developed over time, and you are in the confines of what the vision of everybody was. And then you sprinkle your gifts as an artist and as a performer. They hired you for a reason. You know what I mean? So you have to put a bit of your stamp on it, but certainly the breadth of freedom that comes with doing your own thing is very different. And that's why I love so much doing the concerts, because it's mine and Andy's vision. It's all on us. It's all what we do.
And it's exciting, I think, for us as an audience, just to get to see the person behind the character. So obviously you play it as much as you can for real, but it's nice to hear the anecdotes. It's nice to hear the run up and lead into, but also just to hear you. And I think at any opportunity where we can get just a little bit closer to you as an artist and you as an individual, that feels very exciting.
And I'm not being falsely humble, but I never think anybody cares. So it's always so interesting to me that people actually do, or that people actually know. Like sometimes people say, you once said, and I'm like, I did? Oh yeah, I did. How nice of you to remember.
In terms of roles that you haven't played, people always say, like, what would you want to do? So I've got a slightly different question. Are there any roles out there that exist at the moment that perhaps are for people that are 21 that you won't be right for, or their roles that are people for 85 that you think, do you know what, I'm not right for that now, but God, I'd love to give it a crack. Is there anything out there that you think I wouldn't mind a go at that?
Oh, well, I mean, I imagine that sometime in the 900th revival, maybe I'll get a crack at Dolly.
Yes.
Maybe I'll get a crack at that role. I don't know how many more times they're going to bring Little Shop back and not let me play Audrey, but that's starting to get on my nerves. So I think that's a huge missed opportunity every single time they've done that to me. So maybe the next time that'll happen. Those are the ones that come to mind immediately. So I don't know, because, it also isn't about them casting it improperly. It's like you said, it's like when I'm 70 years old, if I can still hoof around and sing my full range, it'd be cute to do Dolly. It'd be cute to do Sunset Boulevard, the classics, that's what I would be interested in, something to put my stamp on, something that's so unbelievably iconic, and see if I can even make a go at it. That's when you test yourself. That's when you kind of raise the stakes for yourself, and you don't rest on your laurels or your past. You go, oh, this is, because that's a Herculean couple of roles I just mentioned. How, it would be amazing to think I could do them when I'm older.
Have you ever played Kathy in last 5 years?
No, I don't. I wonder, I think I might have had a couple of auditions for it back in the day when it was coming around.
Mm-hmm.
I did not get that role, but I don't wax nostalgic about that. I don't go, gosh, that was one that got away.
I'd like to see that. I feel like it would suit your voice in a completely different way, and would
Really?
be yeah, I'd like to see that.
All right.
I'd like to hear you sing Goodbye Until Tomorrow, I think is what I'm like, yes, that's what I want. Or I know that the Broadway production of Six was supposed to open, and that's six phenomenally fierce roles. I don't know if you've seen that show yet, but again, there's a song in that called Hearts of Stone, which is a huge ballad, which would suit your voice so perfectly.
Listen, I was interested in that. I don't think they were seeing anyone under the age of 5. So I don't know. I don't know. That seemed very interesting to me. So I remember thinking about that and going, oh, that sounds really cool. That sounds very in my, psychological aesthetic. So yeah, I hope it comes back. I do.
Definitely. Definitely. Because I know you guys have that miscast as well. So you could even just be like, do you know what? I'm going to do it here if you like it or not. I'm taking it. So just sit down and clap because I'm going. There are ways. Where there's a will, there's a way is my favorite saying.
You should be a theater casting director. I would finally get all the roles I really wanted to get. So
in terms of the other side of the industry, we see and discuss so much, the coming out the stage door, the happiness on stage, the rehearsal process. But when it's the other side, and perhaps you're between jobs, or you're exhausted after a week of rehearsals, or, you're not feeling 100%, but you know that you're still going to be going on. How do you keep the faith? How do you keep going and battle the demons, and fight until you get to that next job?
That's a good question. Sometimes it's definitely more challenging than other times. You have to keep moving. You have to keep moving forward. The rub of it is, the ironic treachery of it is, when you're in a show, you're much more popular and interesting and in demand with the other jobs than you are when it's over and nobody's, got a place to send the executives to see you 8 times a week. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and at that point in time, you actually can't get out to do anything else. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're there for the run of your contract. So it's very, very interesting that, like, when it is that people and the eyes are on you, you can't go do the other gig. I think that to keep creating, to keep doing what you're doing, to keep your chops honed, to do concerts, to, create in other avenues, make music, work with other people making music. I think that's how I do it. And I try hard not to have too much downtime, but that's sometimes up to the fates of the gods. You can't force a job on yourself, but I do, thankfully I have a voiceover career. So I do a lot of that consistently. It doesn't take the length of time that, a Broadway show does. But you do that, you do commercials, you do workshops, you do episodic television, which is glorious and really fun for me. I've done a lot of indie films during downtimes that you will never, ever see, but I had a great time doing them.
I've sort of asked you lots of different questions, but this is my most important and very simplest question. It's 2022 and the West End comes calling. Are you game? Yes or no?
Oh my God, yeah. Are you kidding? I mean, I think that Andy will tell you the best time of his entire professional career was when he got to do Groundhog Day out of town in London.
Yes.
He will never get over that. It will be his thing that he references back and matches up everything else to that. Was it like Groundhog Day in London? I in a heartbeat. We had some tentative concerts scheduled for this time, and obviously those went away for the time being. I mean, anytime London calls, we will be there.
That's a very ... answer. I love those. It's my favorite. That is my favorite.
No, I'm telling you, Andy he's never gotten over that. He's just over the moon about that experience. And life is long.
Orfeh, this has been an absolute pleasure. As much as I joke, thank you so much. I'm such a fan of yours. And to get the opportunity to talk through just a small amount, because like I joke, it's a huge career, but just to talk through some of these roles and your perspective on everything is a real dream. So thank you so much.
No, thank you for asking me interesting off the beaten path questions. And actually, I always feel like I'm babbling, but you asked questions that triggered really lengthy, good, fun answers that really took me back. So thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The pleasure's been all mine. But most importantly, I look forward to seeing you very soon. Please stay safe.
You too.
And I'll see you in the hopeful, not so distant future.
Bye. Thank you.
You've been listening to 11, the official theatre podcast. Find out more about 11 at club11.london or via our official social channels.